Good morning, class. This is Mr. Walker here coming to you with our lesson for the end of this unit. We're talking about the equation of a circle finally. So, your equation is going to have a general form that we're looking at. This form looks like this. It looks like a lot right now, but we're going to finesse this out a little more. So, let's go back to the beginning and let's redefine what a circle is. The circle is the set of points in a plane equidistant from a given point, the center of the circle. Now, when we want to go through and find our actual equation for this, something that we could use is the Pythagorean theorem. Now, let's imagine we have this circle with H and K. This point here, that's the center of our circle. And we have a radius, R. Now, R here is actually the hypotenuse that we would be able to get if we were able to conduct the Pythagorean theorem. What are the A and B parts of our Pythagorean theorem, though? See, when I look at this, I'm really looking at how far the center is, HK, to the edge of the circle, XY. That's the thing that makes up our radius here. And for these two sides here on our right triangle, if we wanted to go through and find them, the bottom side here, A, is how far H is from X. So how far are these two X values? And then if I wanted the other side here, B, this is how far the y is from k, aka how far are the y values. So, taking these two parts, what we are doing is we're replacing what we have in our picture here on the coordinate plane with what we have here in the Pythagorean theorem. A squared and b squared, those are our two sides we just found. C here is our hypotenuse, aka r. So, if I wanted a new version of my equation using this, I'd replace A with how far X is from H, aka how far is the edge from the center part. Then I add that with Y minus K, aka how far are the Y's from the center to the edge of the circle. And then instead of C, we have R squared, the radius. So this general equation, this general form that we have, this is what we need in order to go through and do any bits that we have here. Some things to remind ourselves to keep track of. These are exponents, okay? So that means that we're taking this to the second power, not times 2. Next thing, these minus signs are there from the formula. So if you put something in here for h or for k that would change when this negative sign is here, you need to change that accordingly. So let's go through and do a couple of examples, people. So reiterating the equation of our formula, it is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. This is where h and k is the center of the circle and the radius is r. So all we're doing is we're taking this general form for our equation and then fitting in the information that we want. So our first example here, they give me the center 0, comma, -8 and the radius of 3. So we want to go through and fit this into our circle. So if this is our center, let's remind ourselves, our center for this equation has our x value, h, comma, our y value, k. So that means that this -8 is our k and 0 is our h. Now here's our radius, 3, so that means that this right here, that is our r for the equation. So all we're doing is we are replacing what was originally there with our new bits of information. So instead of x minus h, we got x minus 0 plus y plus 8 instead of what we had originally. Remember, this had a negative sign. This also had a negative sign. So when we finished rewriting it, that's what ended up turning this into a positive. And then finally, instead of us leaving r squared as r squared, if we can evaluate it, we do evaluate it. So that's where this 9 came from. Now, this could be written this way, or if you continued simplifying, you have x squared plus y plus 8 to the second power is equal to 9. Now, could we expand this out? Absolutely. But do we need to? No, we do not. The only reason you would be doing that is if you wanted to actually graph it in the calculator. In those cases, you got to get it in standard form, but that's not what we're worried about right now. We're dealing with the very beginning aspects of this. So, in order for me to figure out how to write our equation from this circle, we have to find two things. What is the center and what is our radius? So, here is our center dot. And over here, for the record, we can use 0, 0, the origin, so that we can figure out what this is. So from here, 0 to the left, I went 1, 2, 3 boxes. So this is 3 to the left. And then we went up 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. So this is up 4. So that means that our center here, this center point, is negative 3, comma, 4. Now, we have our center. That's all good. Next thing we need to figure out is what is the radius. So let's switch up our color here. We're going to use blue. To find your radius, you want to count from the edge of your circle to the center. So here's the edge of our circle. Here's the center over there in black. So let's count these boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that is 6. Now, if you're unsure, you want to continue counting. So we know from the x-axis up to here, we went up 4 boxes. To get to the other edge of the circle down here, we'd have to go 1, 2 more boxes. So this is also another radius of 6. We can keep checking, but if you check to the right or up, these are also 6 boxes away. For those of you who are a little unsure about counting certain boxes, let me just zoom in real quick here for you. This looks like it's not a whole box over here on this side, but I want to assure you it does touch here right at that box. Same thing up here, touches right at this box. If you're looking to the left or the right of it, I know you see a little bit of a partial box, so you don't have to worry about that. We're just looking at a nice flat edge for us. So, with all that in mind, we have 6, that is our R, and earlier we found our H and K, H and K. So we rewrite our equation. Instead of x minus h, we got x plus 3. Instead of y minus k, we got y minus 4. And then it equals 36. Now, this right here, remember, the original formula had a minus sign. So if the thing that you are plugging in also has a negative sign, you have to go through and change it. And this one, we didn't have to change because this was positive. So we just plugged it in there, nice and easy. And obviously, 36, you just are evaluating what 6 squared is. All right, let's get into our next thing. We got some work on the I do it and the we do it, so let's get to it. First off, we got us a circle here with center negative 4, negative 4, and we need a tangent to go through and help us to figure out our radius. So over here, this says that this center is a part of the circle, and that circle is tangent to the x-axis. So remember, tangent means that it touches, ooh, there we go, that thing working against me. Yeah, there we go. So when we talk about tangent, that means it touches one time. So this circle here touches the x-axis one time. Now, what is the x-axis? Remember, the x-axis is whatever the x value is, comma, 0. That's the y value for it. So, how far is our y value here from here? That tells us our y value are 4 units apart. Our y values are 4 units apart. So, really all we're doing is we're just looking at how to get from here over to the x-axis for us to find the radius. We can't really use any other direction at the moment because this is the indication that we have for how big this radius is. So this is good enough for us to use. All right, next thing we need the equation of our circle. Remember, it is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared, and it is equal to r squared. So when I go through and plug this stuff in there, my h is this x value here, -4. Our k is this y value here, 4. So when we plug this in, our equation is x plus 4 plus y minus 4, and it is equal to that 16. Now, I know I'm not saying every single part of this sentence, but I think you could actually go through and read it. You understand what I'm saying. If you have any questions, just ask me. I want to make sure I can help out. Okay, take a second and pause this and try it out the I do it. You're going to have two equations that you need to look at. First off, our first thing we have to figure out is what's the radius of this circle with the center at 2, 8 that passes through 0, 6. When they say the word passes through, that means that it goes through that point. And then what's the equation of our circle? So go ahead, give it a pause. All right, folks, so we have ourselves a situation here where we have to find our radius, and this one might have been a little bit harder for you to think about. So let's take a look at this. What's the radius of the circle at the center of 2, 8 that passes through 0, 6? So when the word passes through comes up, that means that that's a point that's on the edge of the circle. So if we have the edge of the circle and we have our center of the circle, we're going to need to find the radius by using our good old friend, the distance formula. So the distance formula has us taking the square root of our change in x and we're adding that with our change in y. Sorry about that. Y'all already know my handwriting is. Yeah. So our change in x is what changed from our x here to our x here. So for our change in x, we changed by about 2 units. So we had 2 squared in our first parenthesis plus in our second one, how far is 8 from 6? Also is 2 squared. So when we take this square root of 2 squared plus 2 squared, remember 2 squared is 4. So 4 plus 4 is the square root of 8. So if we have the square root of 8 here, sorry about that, let me fix that. Yeah. So if the square root of 8 is our distance here, that means that our actual distance when we get it is 2.83 units because the square root of 8 is not a perfect square. Now, how do we get our equation of our circle? We could use this as our radius, but we could also use this because this has a decimal that we're not rounding. So let's use this part right here to make it a little easier for us. Our radius is 2.83 units, aka the square root of 8. And then our center, our HK, was 2, 8. So now that we have these two bits, let's just fit it into our formula. We got x minus 2 plus y minus 8, and it equals 8. So x minus 2 squared plus y minus 8 squared is equal to 8. Now, remember r squared here? That's what we have here. Our r, when we square it, is just that number without the square around it. So we take our time. We got this. All right. We have a couple of these questions here on the bottom. Let's go through and make sure that we can go through and solve them. If you want to try them out for your own, pause it and come back. We'll go through and answer it for you. All right. First off, they give us 2 points that are on a plane, and they represent the endpoints of the diameter of a circle. So, how do we find the center here? To find the center, we got to find what's the middle of these two. And then we'll be able to figure out some other things. So, let's first find our middle. To find the middle, we take the midpoint formula. So we take our x values, 1, -1, plus our other x value, -3, and divide it by 2. And then we do the same thing for the y's. So we have 6 plus -2 divided by 2. So -1 plus -3 is -4. -4 divided by 2 gets you -2. 6 plus -2 is also 4, but a positive 4. So when we divide that by 2, we have a positive 2. So our center point here is 2, 2. I'm going to go ahead and move this over real quick just so that this does not interfere with what we have here. So sometimes they're going to give you information that you got to do a little bit of detective work to end up finding what you need. And we were able to go through and do that nice and easy. But we have to just take our time and not get freaked out. So we got our center here. Next thing they're asking, what's the radius? So when we look at the radius, you want to figure out the distance between our center to these points, or you can figure out how long this was originally and take half of it, like do the distance between A and B. I'm going to do the latter because we've already done that in the past. So we are taking the distance, and it is between our center point. So our center is -2, +2. We're going to go from here to A right now. So we have our change in our x values. So how much did we change? We went from -1 up to -2. That's 1. So we got 1 squared. Then we're going from our change in our y's. We went from 6 to 4. So that is a change. No, not 6 to 4. 6 to 2, which is a change of 4. Sorry about that. Got a little ahead of myself. So we got the square root of 1 squared plus 4 squared. 1 squared is 1. 4 squared is 16. So that means that this is the square root of 1 plus 16, aka 17. So when we do this, this gets us around a decimal of 4.12. So when we finally make the equation of our circle, we're going to take these 2 bits of information. I don't know if you really want to deal with the decimal portion for our radius, so you could always use what we have from our calculation, the square root of 17. So our center is -2, 2. We're going to plug that in. So that's going to give us x plus 2 squared plus y minus 2 squared. And then instead of r squared, we have 17, because the square root of 17 squared is just 17. Nice and easy. All right. Next thing that they got us doing, we're looking at this equation here. X minus 15 squared plus y plus 4 squared is equal to 100. We have 2 students here. Marley identifies the center as 15, -4 and a radius of 10. Reed says the center is -15, +4 with a radius of 10. Which one of these guys is correct? So remember our formula that we had. Our formula originally has negative signs with those 2 parentheses. So you see how this one here has a negative sign? That means that our center's x value is 15. And when we look at this, since this has a positive sign, that means our y value is -4, because that would interact with the formula to change that. Now both of these guys have the same radius, which is correct, because r squared would have to be 10 squared to give us this 100. So which one of these guys is correct? Our correct one is Marley here. Marley went through and used the formula, recognized that the negatives would connect, dealing with that -4, and that If it was positive, it would stay with that minus sign inside of our equation. So this is our final round of notes, people. I appreciate you watching. Thank you for coming by. I'll see you in our next unit. See you later.